Gauteng Education Department has appealed to school pupils to contact Childline or seek help for counselling. Two pupils have allegedly taken their own lives, and both were from schools in Ekurhuleni. A grade 8 pupil from Gelukdal Senior Secondary School consumed poison at her home on Tuesday and died on the way to hospital. A grade 12 pupil from Nigel High School also died after consuming poison last Thursday. Let's get some more reaction and advice from SADAG spokesperson Fatima Seedat, who joins us from here in Johannesburg. Fatima, thank you so much for your time. In as much as your organization deals with these kinds of stories probably every day, sadly and tragically so, still a shock when you hear about the steps taken by young people of such a young age to end their lives. What did you make of these stories that hit the news today?
I think it's such an unfortunate circumstances for many people. But we are aware that a lot of teenagers are going through so much at the moment. People in general are going through so much at the moment. And they're not knowing where to turn to get help due to the lack of healthcare, especially mental health care in South Africa. It's very difficult to get the correct help that you need. So a lot of desperate people looking desperately for help. But knowing where to reach out is the most important thing. And SADAG always encourages, if you're going through something, don't feel alone. There are people at SADAG that will care for you and help you through the process of getting the help that you need.
If I look at the stories that we're dealing with today, it involves a grade 8 pupil as well as a grade 12 pupil. And I immediately thought a grade 8 pupil has gone through a massive change, moving from primary learning to high school learning, completely new environment, older children around you, more hormones around you, a new environment. A grade 12 pupil, again, is looking at the closing of one chapter and the opening of another, and all the unknowns that lie ahead and the pressure that we know our matriculants are under as they head ever closer to this big thing called the matric exams. Those two ages, or those 2 years, grade 8 and grade 12, would you consider those to be dangerous years, or years that we need to be more aware of about what those teenagers during those times in their lives are going through?
I think you have to look at it as an entirety. So looking at your children, making sure that they're okay, whether they at the age of 6, which we have reported case of a 6-year-old that died by suicide,
Sure.
to as old as 18, 19. So you're looking across board. And the most important thing is a lot of us as parents and people that take caregivers, we need to be more vigilant, but also more supportive towards our teenagers and our kids, because they are at that age where they're so vulnerable. And our society as a whole has so much of different problems and issues, and to just deal with those issues are a lot. And we know they are at risk because prior to COVID, 9.5 percent of kids were at risk of, the stat was 9.5% of kids or teenagers died by suicide. And that's a huge amount, because if you look at it, it's 1 in 10 children or teenagers. So we need to be more, create more awareness. SADAG goes to schools almost on a weekly basis at times, creating the awareness and ensuring that the kids feel supported and know where to reach out for the help.
If we look at these cases specifically, both of these suicides involved the consuming of poison. Now, when you look at our teenage suicide rates in this country, do we also see trends over periods of time of the forms of which, or the types of suicide that teenagers are opting for or are attempting suicide with?
There's various forms, and unfortunately through the internet a lot of people get information and they learn different ways and methods. But poison is one of the most common ways, because it's the most easily accessible forms of something to get hold of, and also it's easier to store. So learning, knowing the kids that are at that point where they want to attempt suicide, they usually have a plan and a strategy, and they know what they want to do because they're at that very dark, deep point in their lives. And when they are at that point and they purchase whatever they need to, they ensure that they cannot be traced. So that when they do decide the day and time of it, they have everything at their, at their reach, so they can do what they need to do. However, I think it's so important, again, to encourage your children that they are not alone. And if they feel that they are feeling vulnerable and they don't feel comfortable speaking to a parent or someone that's close to them, there is help out there.
We can't have this conversation ever without now speaking about the impact of the internet, the impact of social media. You spoke of the fact that on the internet, kids are able to access the ways in which you can commit suicide. And I know there were trends on TikTok about kids trying to do things that eventually ended up in death and all of those kinds of things, hashtags that do the rounds. But the internet is also a space where if young people feel alone, they say, oh, but it's on the internet where I find like-minded people that I can't find at school or in my neighborhood. It's such a difficult space to police because there are positives, but in your opinion, do the negatives outweigh the positives? And how involved should parents be in what their children are consuming at a certain age on the internet?
I think internet is just so easily accessible, and people are aware that, you can get any type of information on there. But again, it comes down to your relationship with your kids. So, making sure that they're okay, making sure that they're accessing the right types of information, using these platforms for the right reasons. I know a lot of platforms like Facebook has reached out for help. So if you've, for instance, have come across someone's post that is a bit more concerning, you can, send a message through. And SADAG's worked with Facebook before. We do get the numbers get sent to the person where they can contact us. On TikTok as well, we've worked with them previously. We've put together strategies with them so that SADAG's helplines are always accessible to people on TikTok that are feeling vulnerable and overwhelmed. Often we find that we have our social media platforms. People are reaching out to us on those platforms, which is important as well. And we ensure that we respond to everyone, trying to get through to them and trying to assist them as well.
Well, we can only thank you and your team for the work you continue to do. We thank you so much for your time. That's SADAG's Fatima Seedat speaking to us virtually from here in Joburg. And if you are wanting to reach out to them, you can find them on the internet. You just type in SADAG on Google, their contact numbers come on. But you aren't able to do that. The suicide crisis helpline at SADAG is 0800 567 567, 0800 567 567. And they even have a mental health helpline as well, 0800 456 789.